So let's start. So I'm Carl Scrace, and I'm in Perth at the moment. I've started kind of a semi-fictional organisation called the Social Engineering Research Initiative. I'm
Yes.
speaking to Jacque Drinkall here, and we're going to talk a little bit about telepathy, Occupy, consensus, and a few other things, hopefully. So, how are you?
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, thanks for this. Yeah, I'm interested in your project and following it with interest. And there's obvious connections between empathy and telepathy. My unused Twitter account is teleempathetic, so
Okay.
yeah, no, I'm quite interested in your project there at Symbiotica.
Okay, yeah, well, it's interesting that I'm here in Perth and you're all the way over in Sydney, and we're able to use this technology to communicate from across the country.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, obviously it brings out the analogy of telepathy, and new technologies do this all the time. And in my artwork, with using social media, 3D social media, there's instant messaging that goes on, which is just like Facebook instant messaging, and in some of those virtual worlds that people just refer to it as telepathy.
Okay, so you're talking about your specific projects that you do online with avatars?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I Skype. The person I Skype with a lot is my friend Jeremy Owen Turner in Canada, and we Skype because he's so far away, but we're also working on artwork together. So it's a good way of putting flesh to the flesh to the type, because we're Facebooking all the time, and so I can see his face and the micro gestures, and just relate a bit more.
Yeah,
but
totally.
we've had mutual friends as well that have come visiting Australia.
Right. Well,
kind of got
yeah.
a network of friends between the two countries before we met. Yeah.
Okay. And do you want to talk a little bit about that project you did and how it involved Occupy?
Yeah. Well, like everyone else, I was following events in Tahrir Square and Spain as much as possible, even though mainstream media doesn't talk about Spain. So, but some of my friends on Facebook follow it, and getting information that way. And then things happened in New York and then everywhere around the world on October 15th. So just before October 15th, Jeremy invited me to collaborate on a work using Blue Mars Light, which is 3D social media, using Google Street View. So it's like a giant map that you can walk around in as a kind of cartoon character, a bit like Second Life characters. And so we got avatars. Jeremy has a large network of avatar performance artist friends, and so he invited them to join us, and we virtually occupied Wall Street. So we ran down from the Charging Bull in Manhattan, yeah, and then down towards Wall Street, so down Broadway, past all the banks, and you can recognise the big red square sculpture at Sycamore Park in our work. Yeah.
Great. And what effect do you think that has, apart from just building a different form of community? Is that the main thing to build that?
Well, for me, I could go to New York and I could. It's kind of like a rehearsal for running towards Sycamore Park.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the military looking at this software, because it is the kind of software that you can use to reconnoiter. You can use to plan, defense attacks or whatever, and I think activists as well, always people who want to get hold of information about where's the best place to camp, or where's the best place to occupy. I'm sure the impulse to occupy didn't require Blue Mars Light or maps, but it's that kind of sense of art as knowledge, so using maps and technology to about subjectivities and and relations in space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that word relations because, I know you know, Robert Nelson's come out today and kind of linked Occupy Melbourne and in turn the Occupy movement around the world and Australia as relational art. And he thinks, even though it's shambolic, with great promise. Do you think Occupy is art?
Yeah, I do, but then it's so much more, and as well, it's not just art. So I went down to Occupy Sydney to finish the artwork that I made, Virtual Occupy Wall Street, because I needed some audio, and of course I was also able to pinch some audio from the internet, but I went to Occupy Sydney for artwork.
Yeah.
And I found that, there were some great speakers, and just having that connection to my own locality was important for me as well. I was torn between finishing the edit and also checking out Occupy Sydney, so it was a great way of working the two together. And then I just look at it and I go, yeah, social sculpture, this is it.
Yeah.
And so, and then relational is the new buzzword, which I think really extends a lot of the things that Joseph Beuys and some of the early Dada's and happening people were doing, which is working with networks and collaboration and spontaneous things that spill over into something parapsychological as well as political all at once. It's just this great big kind of ball of energy that is very creative. And,
Yes.
it's art, but it's more.
What you use the word parapsychological. What do you mean by that?
Well, I just think when it's there's an element of the uncanny, I think, when they're in political unrest, and this is not talked about much because socialist aesthetics can sometimes dominate these movements. But for me, as an artist who kind of works very intuitively, and I see that it brings out people's passions. These kind of events really bring out some emotions and passions and heightened sensitivity, heightened perception. People become a lot more I don't know. They kind of people bond quicker as well, and so there's this. It's quite an uncanny experience too. Like, it's outside of the home, literally outside of the home. So people camping out overnight, and I just find that there's a lot of uncanny phenomena. It's not literal kind of like Harry Potter kind of stuff, but I find it a little bit cult-like and exciting in that sense.
Yeah. Aspects of it is definitely cult-like, and with my interest in empathy, I've had quite an interest in the consensus model, and the kind of Latin roots of the word consensus is actually to feel the same thing. So I've kind of got this theory that Occupy, or part of Occupy, is a demonstration of empathy, and that demonstration of empathy is actually going viral, and that's why it's spreading around the world, because of this demonstration of how to build a community really quickly, and the fact that you can do it. How do you find the consensus community building kind of model?
It is like, I think we're going to have a workshop with the Quakers, and they have a long history in consensus building, and Jerry is a Quaker in Occupy Sydney, and he's very good at it. He listens. They're very good at listening, and they remember things, and they respect each other's point of view, and they practice getting insight into other people, and wanting other people to put out their thoughts and feelings so that other people can read them. So there's a sense of telepathy in that, and empathy as well, like just making sure that everyone's voice is heard as much as possible. And so there's a reading of minds going on in consensus, not necessarily the involving Ouija boards or anything, but there was something about there's this great online movie called by John Curtis, and it's all about technology and the corruption of democracy and the rise of the .com Silicon Valley kind of Californian ideology, and they were looking at this video game called Pong to get a kind of consensus, in a sense, it's a primitive form of consensus. So what people had to do was it was a computer game where everyone had to work to kind of keep this ball from going between two different walls, I think. And so everyone had to kind of hold up a green or a red card in the same kind of way to kind of get this thing going back and forth. I don't know, it's a bit obscure. It was like a group mind developed in this practice of Pong.
Well, it's interesting because with the Occupy movement, each kind of local iteration hasn't really had that much contact with the other occupiers, especially at the start. But now they are all connecting, and they all do seem to have been facing the same issues and same court cases and all the same stuff. So it's really interesting that these different things with their own heartbeats and different people coming together without leaders are forming in these certain ways. And it shows, for me, I think, a lot about human nature and the fact that we are all very similar when you strip back a lot of the egos and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And so
that's true.
I'm reading this book at the moment. I thought you'd love it. And talking about cults and culture and stuff. It's called Culture.
Oh, cool. Ideas can be dangerous.
And this page, it's got about telepathy.
There's telepathy going. Oh, it is telepathy.
Yeah. So
it's a dangerous idea, telepathy.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk a little bit more about telepathy? What you think it is and everything like that?
Yeah, I think it's lots of different things. So there's a couple of theorists kind of starting to want to use the word telepathies rather than telepathy because it was pretty much invented around the time of the telephone, around the time of psychoanalysis as well.
Okay.
In 1882, and it was invented at the same time as the founding of the Society for Psychic Research, as well as the invention of the word telesthesia, which is distant ideas. And I think it's come to kind of take on a life of its own and cover many different things. But and it's a very successful word. It really is quite present in our language, and it describes something that's present in every culture.
Okay.
And I think in every culture it's different. Like some ancient cultures, the Mayans describe experiences that are like telepathy, that we can, probably describe the word telepathy to. And I think Freud used it in his theory of transference. So he talked about it as as inseparable to what goes on in the psychoanalytic transference. So the situation between an analyst and the patient, and today you hear it being used in new technologies as well. But it's also there in
what
theories
ways
of
in
mind.
new technologies? In what ways?
Well, I've worked with. I've managed to get permission to work with some images from Professor Kevin Warwick's cybernetics lab over in Reading in the UK, and that was because he invented a telepathy chip. And so I simulated the insertion of his telepathy chip, into my own arm, and I did that for a Sydney Festival exhibition at the Australian Centre for Photography. and basically just got my friend to mimic putting a chip in my arm.
Yeah.
which is what you look at when you go to his website. You just see this surgeon sticking his little thing in his arm. But I think whenever there's new technology, there's new telepathy as well. So they're just popping up all over the place. And one of the great ones that I really want to work with, and someone was just telling me the other day that you can get software that does this for $300. You put on like a headset and you can move like the mouse around just through your brainwaves. And like there's been talk about this going on for 10 years or more, and it's just the technology is getting cheaper. It's like a couple $100. So yeah, I might have to invest.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and that's software that's being developed for people with disabilities primarily.
Okay.
But yeah, the potential for it to become useful for everyone is limitless, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technology already is so pervasive, and I know I'm pretty much attached to my computer and my iPhone all the time.
Yeah.
And it is definitely an extension of my consciousness, and also an extension of my eyes, what I can see and what I can read. And I think it's having a big effect on the world. I think memes can spread across the world much quicker than ever before.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, I got a sense of, I kept wanting to say it's like telepathy. What's going on, with all the blogging and about Times Square. You can see it becoming viral and contagious. And I'm really interested in how ideas and feelings become contagious. And because I think that's where you've got distant feeling, you've got distant ideas travelling.
Yeah.
They might be distant, but then they become very proximate very, very quickly through new technology. So there's a telepathy thing going on there.
So,
and because I researched it, I find it exciting when the real world reveals a new way of it happening. I get excited about politics just like a lot of other people. So I'm keen to kind of continue my thinking down that line. And there've been people, social theorists who've talked about crowds and how the mass bomb is like a telepathic umbilical cord in crowds, and there's been art theorists that there's Jean-Jacques Lebel talked about the May '68 riots as really bringing out a parapsychological phenomena and telepathic intensification of perception, within a moment of great political change. I look at what's happening with events, Times Square and Spain, and you can see people talk about economic contagion, and it starts with that. You can see an economic collapse happening, and then you can see that triggering people's feelings and ideas. People are scrambling for new ideas like communism, capitalism, what's going to work. How can we fix both of them, or how can we just bypass both of them and come up with something that actually works?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of passions and thinking that's going on, and I just love my computer's too much too sometimes. So following what's going on around the world.
Well, that kind of links into something else I've kind of thought is really interesting, because something that Occupy has done is it built actual face-to-face communities and brought them together in a way that we haven't had in a long time. But it's also using this worldwide network to communicate and share ideas and start memes and spread things around the world. So I think this is kind of the first time that a movement or anything really has addressed both needs for humans, like the actual face-to-face, as well as the want to be connected to the world. So, it's a pretty interesting time to be alive. And whatever brains got together to first getting this ball of Occupy moving must have been pretty creative, I think.
I know. There is a giant strategic report out there that I know that it's come out from Spain, and it's there's a lot of thought that's obviously gone into it all, and we get little bits feeding through. and obviously there's delays in translation into English and stuff, and
Yeah.
I guess,
Well, that's something a lot of
yeah,
people don't realise, that a lot of this impetus is coming out of Spain, and that's getting fed
yeah,
out through Egypt and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I remember when I was there, couch surfing through Portugal and Spain, that people would be like, "Oh, I'm going to local activism meeting," and I realise now that they were probably planning all these movements then, but they just
yeah,
thought, "Oh, what are they doing?" It was just the ignorant Australians. So
yeah,
yeah, they were seeding ideas back then, but that's because the economic situation was worse.
yeah.
Over
So
there.
you talked to people in Egypt like ages ago?
I haven't. That was when I was in Spain and Portugal. Those
Oh, you were
discussions were
there.
happening. Yeah. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, that was just before it all kind of started. So
Yeah, yeah.
great,
Okay.
great. So thanks for speaking.
Oh, no worries.
Uh,
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I'd like to stay in touch with your project
yeah, definitely.
and
I think there's
yeah,
definitely a lot of links between telepathy and empathy and memes and Occupy and all the rest. So, yeah, hopefully we can chat again.
yeah.
Great.
No worries.
Thanks.
Take care.